Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Fierros with Tri-City Equity Group. With me is my co-host, Vince Gethings. Today, we've got a special guest on the show, Apurva Shah. Apurva is a co-founder and managing partner of Jay's Properties. He's an engineer, he's a product manager in his W-2. He still has his W-2 day job, and of course, a real estate investor. He says by night, but of course, we all know that that's not. It's never just limited to just a couple hours, right? So. He said he grew up learning about real estate from his family. It's a family business, just while learning from his father, but decided to go actually out and build his own team and company. Started off in, as many people do, in residential, flipping houses, wholesaling, single family, and then transitioned fully into multifamily and mobile home park investing, which we know has gotten a pretty good following here recently. Currently, he's got $30 million in his portfolio under management, and investing primarily in New York, North Carolina, and the Southeast, but looking to expand this year. So, Apurva, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve and Vincent. Great to be here.
Yeah, no, we're glad to have you on. We're excited. All right. Well, so for those of our listeners who may not be, aware of who you are and kind of what you've got going on, tell us a little bit more about yourself, what you do and what you're working on currently.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Apurva Shah, right? As you've already introduced, I started in real estate about I would say probably in college. Started learning from my parents. They basically do office buildings, converting them into luxury condos. Learned a lot of development, learned a lot of the operations on that side of it. Lot of hands-on experience. So originally from New York, and then about six and a half years ago, I moved down to Raleigh, North Carolina for my W-2 job. So currently a product manager from an engineering perspective. And then I wanted to start in doing something in real estate, since that's kind of, I just loved it. It was a really cool way to, make some more money on the side. So I started flipping houses, doing some wholesales, which were great. And then I saw, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this. Let's build this out and let's have some more fun with it. Making those, I wanted to transition basically into multifamily and mobile home parks, because it was more of a cash flow opportunity versus, hey, these like little single hits of having these capital events. So. Now my team basically invests primarily in basically multifamily and mobile home parks at this point.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, definitely stepping up. I think that's definitely a track that a lot of people take. It's like, okay, you realize, flipping houses or kind of starting off with the residential. It's great to get started, right? But after a while, you kind of realize, okay, there's limits to this. There's limits to how quickly you can go, how quickly you can grow, and just the efficiencies aren't there, right? So that's awesome. Well, yeah, it sounds like you definitely had a good background so far with just in real estate as a whole. What is your, you mentioned your father and your kind of your family. Tell us a little bit more about kind of how that kind of started, and because some people are like, hey, I'm not interested at all in the family business. That's mom and dad's thing. I don't. That's real estate, whatever.
We usually buy the property off that exact scenario, right? It's
some
person that built an apartment complex in the 70s and 80s, and then they thought they were going to gift it to the kids, and they were like, we don't want this thing. Like, sell it, let's cash out, and we each get our $1 million and go our separate way. So we usually buy like the 57 unit Carolina Village in Texas, exact same scenario. So yeah, it's awesome to see.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's incredibly surprising, right? So we that's exactly how we purchase our properties too. We typically approach mom and pop owners and say, hey, look, we can give you guys market price, or give you guys, basically it's more of a favor, right? You're helping them out of a situation as they want to retire. And so for me, what it was my dad by trade, he's an engineer. Right. So he started his engineering firm, and it was doing really well, and said, OK, cool. I have this engineering firm, but I also like real estate. So we're originally from India. And he used to have a couple of apartments, real small little, condos in India. So for him, he just was doing the rental passive income kind of thing when he was working in India. And then when he came to the States, it's still that immigrant story. Hey, I have $20 in my pocket, working for someone. And then he basically said, okay, I'm just going to go out and do my own thing with engineering. And through that, he had a house, he bought a house, and then he sold that house and basically converted that into a rental, and kind of just trickled down one by one, and then started doing multifamily. And at that time, I was just a baby at that point, but I loved just seeing what he was doing. I loved the engineering side. I loved just operations and things like that. And seeing him, work so hard to build what he has and give both my sister and I a great, upbringing, right? I was like, look, this is really cool. I want to at least learn from you. I want to see how to do this. And is there a way I can just be a part of, what you're doing? And I went to school in Rochester, New York. So he actually bought a property. He bought I think it was about 14-story mid-rise building. Office building in Syracuse, so about an hour and a half away. And I asked him, hey, could I be a part of this deal? I'm a college student, didn't really have money or anything like that, but he said, look, fine, you could definitely do this, but I want you to come down here as often as you can. School is obviously very important, but run this deal for me, so I don't have to do all the work, basically. So for me, it was just learning the operations, learning, the zoning, and managing contractors, and doing that whole entire side of it. And for me, as I was like, I was probably 21, 22 at that time. I thought, hey, I could probably do this on my own, and want to learn, at least, see how I can create my own business. And that kind of transitioned when I came down to North Carolina. I was like, okay, let me just try flipping houses. I mean, that's how my dad started. He didn't necessarily flip houses. He was converting them into passive income by just renting them out, which is still great for a lot of folks. But I thought, hey, Raleigh, North Carolina had a lot of, basically homes that were deteriorating, and there were a lot of people who were just telling me, hey, you should try to flip a house. And I said, cool, let's try it. So I did the first one. I think we made, I don't know, I think it was about 100,000, or it might have been $70,000 on our first flip. And after that, I was just a snowball effect. I was like, let's get the next one. Let's do this. Let's reinvest. And at that time, we just had no money. We basically had what we were making in our W-2 income, and which is still nice, but at the same time, we were just really, really hungry and really aggressive. I remember in those days, we were eating peanut butter sandwiches every day, and that's all we could afford. And it was just a trickle effect. And once we built up that capital stack, we said, okay, let's really transition. Let's see, is there a more efficient way to build this business? And mobile home parks, it became more of that, recession-proof asset, as well as, Class C apartments. So that's kind of that whole backstory and the transition there.
No, that's awesome. That's great. I feel like you touched on something there that I feel like doesn't always get transferred. We talked about, a lot of times the parents now, or the kids rather, don't want to have a hand in the family business. But that's great. That's great, for one, that you had the desire to want to go and learn from dad and kind of what he had going on. But also too, like, you have the desire for real estate, and understanding that, look, everything doesn't come easy necessarily. Like, it's, I'm going to have to work for some of this. You mentioned also too, and it's not the first time I've heard it, and not the first time we've heard on the show too, like kind of having that, like the immigrant mindset where it's, hey, this is a great land of opportunity. We need to be able to kind of take advantage of that. And I feel like that totally gets lost on, a lot of us that were grew up here, were born here. My wife is an immigrant, and so she's got kind of that same mindset. And I know a lot of the people that we've had on the show kind of have that same, where it's like, no, this is a really great place. Media, you don't hear that. You definitely don't hear that all the time in the media. And there's a lot of different news source outlets would have you believe something otherwise, but no, this is a pretty awesome place. So. Yeah.
And for me, I wanted to build something that I can say, hey, this is my own, right? And or maybe not just my own, it's my team's. I have other partners. My partner's name is Jack Yen. His background is data analytics. Great guy. I mean, his W-2, he's trying to basically he's like doing cancer research and pulling a bunch of data on that side. So really cool stuff. And then for him on our, real estate side, he pulls all the data and does all the research in terms of underwriting populations, understanding what are the key markets that we want to invest in. And, for us, we're incredibly conservative in terms of how we invest and how the numbers work out, because it's not just about our money, it's about our investors' money, right? So if I don't feel comfortable putting in my own money to fund the entire deal, I'm not going to take a dollar from anyone else. So we want to make sure we're able to, say exactly what we're going to do and execute on that. So, and a lot of times, we've done that. We've done just that. We're in that. We've been blessed in a way to continue to give significant returns to our investors. So it's been a great journey so far.
Oh, that's great. So how did you go from obviously, we're talking about some of the deals that you were working on, right, as a project, and obviously you've got a partner. And you guys are you're raising capital now, right? So how did you make that transition from going into, okay, like, hey, these are our own deals, I can obviously, we can do this, where you kind of built your team out, to transition where, now you're raising funds, you're syndicating and kind of doing that thing. Where did that transition come from?
So a lot of it came from looking at the deal size. It's great to do a $100,000 house, and that is definitely easier, or I would say easier in quotes, to basically find funds for and complete that type of flip. But as you get into $1 million, $2 million, $10 million deals, right? Those are significant. You need to have an operations team. You need to have the key folks in place. And about 3.5 years ago is where it kind of just clicked for me. It was just like, why am I breaking my back to do 1 or 2 or 3 houses when we could have 50 units or 90 units or it's all in one place, right? And it makes it a lot easier in terms of efficiencies and processes. And especially since we're not doing this full time, it becomes like, okay, do I want to drive all over these places or fly to all these places? Or do I just want to, have this one set market that I know a lot about and invest there? And so for us, it started coming down to that point where some of my coworkers, I mean, even at my engineering job, they started taking notice. They're like, oh, wow, okay, it seems like you're doing well. You have these projects going on. How can we invest? And, for us, since we have those relationships with those folks, we said, okay, hey, why aren't you throwing a little bit of money, see how you like it? And that's exactly what they did. One of our coworkers gave us, $50,000, one of them gave $100,000, and we're like, look, let me build that trust and build that relationship with you. And obviously we have that relation from a professional level, but when you get finances involved, right, it definitely becomes unique. And you want to make sure you're communicating properly. You're constantly in over communicating, telling them, hey, look, this is what's happening. Not every deal is going to go perfectly as planned, but you want to communicate that and be upfront and exactly on, whether it be monthly or quarterly reports, however you do it. For us, it's typically been monthly, but we like to over communicate with our investors and tell them, hey, this is exactly what's going on.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's great. I mean, touch on something there too. It's like, well, you still have your W-2, which I'm sure, they're not concerned about you necessarily. Like, they don't care, like, hey, I've got a stressful deal, I'm raising money, I'm putting together funds. Like, you need to get whatever you guys' work done. Is there something beyond, let's say, just kind of building something of your own that you have as a why? Like, what's your why beyond hey, I want to have a successful business and kind of build some more passive income? What would you say is your why?
Yeah. So the big thing for me was when I moved down to North Carolina, right? I didn't have any money. I barely, I rented this place that was pretty terrible. and the big why here is being able to give back and provide affordable housing to our tenants, provide safe, affordable housing. I'm sure, slumlords and all these different names get thrown out, especially when you're on the lower class tier of housing. But for us, I've lived in some of those, more rundown areas. And I was like, wow, these people don't treat this place well at all. The management team doesn't care. And I wanted to run it completely different. So we invest back into our communities. A lot of what we do is even like for our mobile home parks, there's a lot of single moms out there. And what we want to do is help them learn to budget. So what we'll do is we'll come out there, myself and my partner or one of our managers will be there, and we'll say, hey, look, these are some tools, these are some spreadsheets, these are some items that you can use to budget for your groceries, budget for normal expenses, and just try to teach them as much as they can, as much as we can, to our tenants. So a lot of times, I think once a year or twice a year, we'll just go out there and spend some time with our tenants, spend some time, it may not, they're not going to contact us every day or anything like that. That's why we have our property managers, but it's really about just educating and being out there and providing safe and affordable communities.
Nice. So speaking of those properties, so I was just looking at your case studies on your website there. So you have two that are kind of pretty unique. You have that mid-rise you're talking about earlier, and then you have a mobile home park in Michigan. So I want to dive into one of those a little bit deeper. Actually, we're going to do both. Let's just do both. So let's go first, which is pretty interesting, is which we don't see in mobile home investors do, mid-rises. It's just not something we see that often. So walk us through that. I know it looks like it was more your dad's deal, and you were kind of on the team as getting started, but y'all made like $3 million on it, it looks like. So I want to hear the story on that, the Chimes building.
Yeah. So real quick background on the building itself. The same architect that built the Empire State Building, obviously a unique structure in New York City, built this building. So the Chimes building is a historic building in downtown Syracuse. So I think the purchase price was probably about $1 million, if I remember correctly. And it was an underperforming building that a developer just had, and his portfolio was just not doing well with that building specifically. So he was just trying to get rid of it. Background basically was my dad purchased it and was like, well, let's try to do a significant infill. So, we were marketing it, and I was trying to help him on that side. I was like, look, let me try to gather some folks on the office side, some lawyers, doctors, folks that would want to be in an office space. So we were doing some marketing. We filled up some space. It started performing within reason, right? It wasn't like a home run or anything like that. We were just able to fill up, maybe 20,000 square feet, which at least kept us above water. So great. And then at that point, we started having conversations just with the city, and the city was saying, hey, look, there's a need for luxury condos in this area. They're already starting with gentrifying and building this like massive bus stop right across the street from this building. And we said, look, like if since there's a need for luxury condos, how do we want to do this play? Do we want to convert this into a basically apartment building, or do we, mixed use, or do we want to just continue down the path of filling it up with office tenants and go that route? And we said let's run a risk a little bit. Let's run the numbers. Let's see what it comes out to be. And because there was such a big need, we said let's do this conversion. So we started talking to some contractors. We love hiring local. So started talking to some Syracuse developers and saying, hey, look, we need to rebuild office space and convert them into these condos. So that's exactly what we did. We just started building about 50 of them. I think that's where we stopped at. and we still had some office space as well. And then also there's a retail area in the bottom on the first floor. And we said, okay, let's take a pause. Let's reassess. How are we doing? And it was phenomenal. I mean, the apartment side of it was just doing incredible. And that's exactly, at that point, we got approached by a buyer from, I think he was out of New York City, said, hey, look, I really want to buy this building. Whether it be the historical side, I'm not sure what his thought process was. And he said, hey, I just want to purchase it from you. And for us, we were like, well, this is a great opportunity for us to cash out. At that time, I was about to transition to go down to North Carolina. So we both, my dad and I, were like, hey, what a great time. Timing just worked out, and said, okay, let's leave. Let's get out. And that's how we sold it, and made that nice profit.
Yeah, I'd say it was 6.6, almost 6.7 million. You bought it for $1 million, all in for what, 3-ish?
Yeah,
right?
about 3. Yeah.
So that's a pretty good profit. And then, a couple months later, you're eating peanut butter sandwiches in Raleigh. So
yeah, exactly.
Talk with your pops, but about how that played. Anyway, no. So 2 big things I took away from that story is, one, you went to the city and asked them what the state of the economy was and what the need was. Most people don't ever think of that stuff. So whose idea was that? Is that your dad, just from experience of going to the Chamber of Commerce, going to talk to city planners and talking, kind of touch on that conversation, how that came about, and who's like in the city you went and talked to?
Yeah, so great questions there. So there is it's basically, I think it's called the Hotel of Syracuse, that is a couple of blocks down. And we saw how it was just incredibly run down, and there was a developer who was looking to purchase that, and they purchased it, but never really executed on their plan of actually converting it into apartment complexes, or basically an apartment building. And so we said, look, why don't we be the first to the market? And that was my dad's idea. He said, hey, look, let me start talking to the planning folks. Let me start having those conversations with the Chamber of Commerce and really the city officials, the folks that are the decision makers. And from there, they wanted to support this project day one. They said, oh wow, this could be a really great play for the city. And that's exactly what it was. I mean, a lot of folks, a lot of developers always, they have these conversations with city officials, but they never actually execute. And that was the difference between my dad and I versus, these big shot developers out of New York City, and they just never truly executed on their plan. And since we were one of the first to the market, it worked out really, really well. And today, I mean, I think I Googled the property, probably a couple of months back, and it's officially a fully, Class A apartment building, which is absolutely phenomenal. Nice. The developer who finally, he actually executed the remainder of our plan.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's awesome. And then the other ones, so you had to rezone this. How difficult was that?
That was lots of back and forth with attorneys. So we hired a really good attorney. He basically kind of led the entire effort because the city was already on board, and they liked my dad and I. We said, okay, great. Let's. It kind of just within a month or two. It was just a quick process. I know if I do that here in Raleigh, North Carolina, that process might take probably 6 months or even more. Yeah. So. But it's really being able to have those conversations and be really candid with these city officials, and it just worked out well. They expedited the entire process. It helped from the financial perspective. I mean, there's a lot of legal fees and a lot of things you have to go through to do rezoning. So that just worked very, very well in Syracuse. Nice. I know, without a doubt, I know if I do that in other areas, it may not be as smooth. That's for sure.
Nice. That's awesome. And how did you fund this deal? Because, it sounds like it was underperforming. So maybe traditional lending might have not been ideal. Plus, you had all the $2 million in capital expenditures for the project. So what was the funding structure?
Yeah. So for my dad, he basically sold another property. We did a 1031 exchange into this. It was all cash. And then with the funds left over, that's basically what we used to actually do the renovation. So we did floor by floor. The first floor was like maybe 25 units. And we said, okay, let's start with the first floor. Let's see how it goes. And it might not have been 25. It was probably 10 units per floor. So we started with the first floor, rented out that entire first floor. Then we basically went to the bank and said, hey, we have a performing property. Can we have a loan against this thing? Essentially, the BRR, right? Yeah. That whole side of it. So we refinanced, got some more. We did a cash out, used some more funds basically to start doing this additional floors, basically up to until we got to that 50 unit. But the major thing here was my dad did a 1031 into the building, so that was the positive side of it. The traditional lending obviously wouldn't have worked. Yeah.
No, I absolutely love it. You found a property completely out of the normal for most multifamily investors. You saw the opportunity, and then you do what all good entrepreneurs do. You solve problems. Because there's, from what I'm looking at, there's a bunch of problems, right? So you have like this big building, you want to get it rezoned, needs millions of dollars of CapEx, underperforming. And it was just like, okay, let's like figure each one of these out, talk to city planners, let's get it rezoned. That's one problem to solve. Next one, funding, got the 1031. Okay, now we need the additional funds for CapEx. And then, there's more problems to solve. And I love it. I love entrepreneurs and how their ability to solve problems and then being rewarded very well when they can successfully do that. And then the other key point here I took away is you left meat on the bone for the next guy because they finished out another 100 or so units on there. So you did the first 50 units, provided proof of concept, didn't extract everything out of it, and was able to probably easily sell it. Like you said, they approached you to buy this property because you were able to show that what you're doing works, right? You had the proof of concept, the need was actually there. You took the risk, the market, absorbed it, had the proof of concept, and then you were rewarded for that. So that sounds like an absolute home run.
It's super interesting. It's, like to Vince's point, it's like, okay, this is solving problems. And it's like, I wonder if this potentially could work in different areas moving forward, just knowing that there's a pullback in a lot of, commercial retail and office building and all that kind of stuff. Now that everything's going virtual, that could be, obviously this is not going to work everywhere.
I've seen several hotels, that have gone bankrupt this year, unfortunately, but being marketed as apartment conversion.
Yeah, and we still have significant a lot of our portfolio is still in New York, and as I separated myself away from my family business, I actually started reinvesting a lot back into it because my dad and I were like, hey, let's do a deal together. So we actually have a 200,000 square foot office building, a mixed use building in Long Island. And with that, obviously, since COVID hit and then things that are happening in the economy, office space is certainly pulled back with the economy, just the way things are going with the market right now. And that's another play that we're looking to do. So since there's in that building specifically, there's actually two areas. There's obviously the main building that we have, and then there's this massive parking lot behind that building. And what we're thinking about doing is nothing's become real or anything yet, but these are just some ideas we're throwing out, is do exactly what we did in Syracuse back down in Long Island. Now the politics and that side of it is completely different. So the time aspect is not necessarily on our side here, but again, taking that it's still a performing asset, but maybe creating efficiencies, making it a little bit better, so where we can do basically the same development concept again.
Got it. Yeah, that's awesome. Just keep, you got the proof of concept and just keep replicating. That's where scale comes from. That's where economies of scale and efficiencies come from. It's just, you have a plan that works and just keep, start replicating it. All right, I'm going to switch gears to another property that you have because it is very interesting. So the Rumbaugh Estates in Midland, Michigan. Tell me you possibly got to Midland, Michigan?
Okay, so great property. I'm actually a little bit upset that we sold it, but that's how we got into mobile home parks. We got incredibly hungry, and that gave us that bug of, hey, let's continue to do this, continue to invest in mobile home park and that affordable housing side of it. So one of my buddies out of New York, him and I, we've done just a couple of flips and wholesales and things like that together. On the single family side. And he's originally from North Carolina and said, okay, hey, I'm going to take a corporate job in New York. And, said, great, let me know if you're seeing anything, if you ever want to do a real estate deal together. Him and I stayed close and he's a great friend of mine and also investor. And he found this opportunity in Midland. And he pitched it to me saying, hey, look, there's a lot of room and meat on this bone on the deal itself. Let's invest together. Let's bring our team together. Let's see if we can close this thing together. And that's exactly what we did. So I think we purchased it for about $550,000. It was seller finance. Just the terms were phenomenal, right? I mean, we put 10% down. I think it was at like 5% interest rate, and it just worked. And the reason we got it was the owner basically passed away. Real unfortunate situation there, but the wife took it over, and the wife was like, I don't really want to do this, but I also want to continue to have some cash flow. So again, we wanted to solve her problem, saying, hey, let us give you some cash flow. Let us continue to give you some interest on having this asset. So we said, okay, great. Let's get in there. We had an on-site team basically increase the rents. It was just definitely an underperforming asset right from the get-go because, deferred maintenance, folks were just not paying. And overall there was opportunity. And once we raised the rents, we started, or before we raised the rents, we completed a lot of the deferred maintenance, added some value in that park. Our on-site team, the on-site property manager, started building these relationships with the community. And, they started having these get-togethers of, hey, like, what is, just having, conversations around what is it that you guys want out of this community. So I think it was about 63 lots, and, there's some infill that we did. And then from there, we again just got approached again, and another investor just wanted to buy it, and we said, okay, cool. Let's. We knew what it was worth, and they basically wanted to pay for it, and we said, okay, let's do it. It was a great, phenomenal deal for everyone, and there's still meat on the bone for the next investor.
Nice. It's just a huge swing going from Syracuse to Midland, mid-size luxury condos to mobile home parks in the mid-Michigan, which is, so the reason it's funny is that's where I'm actually moving to in like 2 months.
Oh, so, wow.
Yeah. Completely random, right? It's, actually I like Midland. It's a great town.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
you grew, and Vince grew up in New York.
Yeah, so I grew up. I'm from New York, and I'm moving to Midland. Yeah, so
wow. Okay, so what made you what made you move?
So that's where my wife, her family is from there, and they want to move back home.
Gotcha.
Close to family, so they're actually from Bay City, but I was like, if I'm moving there, I'm moving to Midland. I'm not. So Midland's better, right? So.
Our rule of thumb is always invest in near major metro areas. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's just, that's been one of our core fundamentals within the business. Location always matters. For us, we see cash come in different ways. There's obviously forced appreciation. There's compression in cap rates, right? Especially right now where, assets are so hot, they're flying off the table. People want to pay, crazy numbers for assets. And then there's obviously the cash flow aspect of it of when you're in the deal. So it has to check those boxes for us to really invest in it. Yeah,
no, that's absolutely. And I think Midland, I wouldn't necessarily call Midland a major metro. It's like what?
Yeah.
but it is definitely the best zip code around for hundreds of miles. So I will give it that. Did you buy this through Capstone by chance?
So they help sell the project for us.
Okay. Now I just wonder, because I'm on their list too. So I always see, we almost bought a, remember that, Steve, the last year we were looking for a mobile home park and we found the one in Midland. We almost bought it. Interesting. Small world. Wasn't this one though.
Keep me in mind. Maybe there's an opportunity for our teams to. Was
this off Bay City Road? What road is this on?
Yeah.
Because there was one on that was like Bay City Road, the one that goes east-west that we were looking at. We needed to pull the trigger. We're, shiny object syndrome. Like, no, we're doing multifamily. Stick to multifamily. Don't get distracted. But
that's my weakness. I mean, that's one of the things over the last 2 years I really had to pull back. I see shiny objects and I'm like, oh, let me invest in this. Let me do this. Let me do all these different things. And my wife helps me a lot with this. She helps me reel it back in, saying, look, you're really good at this thing and you're really good at this thing.
Yeah.
Invest in it and continue to do well and stop trying to go after like a Forex trading and like some random, other items that folks approach us about, hey, do you want to invest in this and this? And we're like, no, hold on. Let's pull it back.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely important. And two big things. There's one, you're aware of that weakness, that you can get pulled, and it is huge. Most people they go with the whim and like, okay, this month I'm doing flips. This month I'm doing mobile homes. This month I'm doing, whatever, Airbnbs and fucking Florida Keys, something like that, whatever it is. And one, you're aware of that. And then two, you have team members or teammates that can help pull you back in and keep you on track. So speaking of team members, you're with you being in Raleigh and you have product in multiple different states. This is definitely a team sport. So let's talk about who's on your team. I know you mentioned Jack. I see Christina on here. Like, who else is on your team? How did you find them? How is it formed? How did you cut up, duties, responsibilities operationally? And then how do you manage out-of-state portfolios?
Yeah. So definitely great questions. And a lot of times I ask myself, hey, we've had partners and folks that we've worked with, and sometimes they're just not a good fit. We definitely want to, a lot of times before we even partner with folks, we try to have those conversations early on saying, hey, what is it you want out of the deal or anything, basically, out of life and stuff like that. We have those deeper conversations. And so with our New York portfolio, that's partnered with my family, that we have on-site folks that work with my family, and we've kind of built our team around that just because of the size of portfolio that we have up there. And then moving down to the Southeast, it's Jack, Christina, and I. That's our core team, but then we also have other employees from property managers that we've hired on, and then the responsibility aspect of it is probably something that we've really tried to narrow down over the last year. So Jack's really good at the data analytics, pulling the data, try to find the deal and continue that pipeline flow. And then for me, I'm very good at the operations and understanding, hey, this is what needs to happen for us to continue to make money. And also I do some of that investor relations side of it, where I'm communicating with our investors, letting them know, hey, look, this is how the asset's doing. This is what's going on. This is what the next 2 months looks like or 3 months looks like. Christina, she's really good with working with our property managers, and she'll go on site. She'll be the folks. She'll be the person that works with a lot of the tenants as well as the on-site property managers and the team on that side of it. Where if there's ever an issue or a tenant-related concern, she'll try to work through that. And if there's ever a need for anything at all, she'll escalate it or to us or to me. So
nice. Yeah. And that's very, very important, is to get, like you said, narrow down. We use the word clarity in our team. If anybody's ever done anything on, organizational management or anything like that, it's, the dysfunctions of teams, about high performing teams, efficient teams, effective teams versus, the 90% of teams that just are barely making it by. And a lot of it has to do, there's things like making sure, like you said, your goals are aligned. Like we all need to be rowing in the same direction here. Our goals that we want out of this thing need to be aligned. That way things like our values, our work ethic, and all those things are at the same pace. And there's other things like, making sure that how you mentioned, making sure the right person is in the right seat. That's very important. You might have, I don't know if you read the book Traction by Gino Wickman, but you can have very good people in the wrong seat, and it's a train wreck. And the biggest thing is just being able to step back, give your team the white space to be able to explore, okay, what's going on here, why, and then make changes. And it's not like a one-time and done thing. It's like quarterly. You have to, kind of be looking back, stepping back from being in the business and start working on the business and get that clarity to make sure everyone's in the right seat, that plays to their strengths, and they know exactly, they have clarity in what their area of responsibility, what their wheelhouse is. Because then that's where accountability comes from, is that having that clarity is like, look, these are your strengths. This is the seat you're in. We're going to clearly define every single thing that falls within your wheelhouse. And now there's no excuses. Like you're going to be accountable for this, and you're accountable to the team. And there's no more passing the buck. And a lot of that teams just don't do that. It's hard. It takes time. It's an ongoing process. So a lot of teams don't do that, and the friction starts and the resentment starts. And, and we've had that in our team too, where it's like, hey, you should be doing this. Like, well, I didn't know I should be doing that. And then like months go by, and, tasks aren't getting done. So you have to give yourself the white space, quarterly meetings, things like that, offsites for a weekend where you can work on the business. So I don't know how you were able to navigate through that process using any tools like that.
Yeah, so we actually just started using Podio. It's a great tool. So what we're using that for is deal flow, understanding opportunities. We'll say we get 10 opportunities next week, but you're not going to be able to remember everything about each one, right? So you want to be able to categorize them, see, okay, what's your priority, right? Is XYZ property in Raleigh the most important one, or somewhere in Virginia, wherever you're investing, is that more important? So understanding prioritization has been huge, and utilizing Podio has been really great for us. And then also just creating processes around rent collection. So one of the big things for us, especially in the mobile home park space, has been making sure tenants understand the rules, especially during a new acquisition. We're incredibly upfront. We gave them a piece of paper and then also give them the rule book. This is exactly, we understand the previous owner may have done it a certain way, but this is how a successful, safe community is built. And we tell them, look, if this is not something that you guys want to abide to, it's okay. We understand. Let's see if we can find you another place to live. And those are a lot of the unfortunate conversations that we do have. Folks just, rules are sometimes a negative thing in a lot of tenants' eyes, but we also see it as, hey, it's more of a safety thing for our employees, as well as us, and as well as the other tenants that live there. If I don't personally feel comfortable staying in one of these mobile home parks, then I shouldn't be investing in it. I shouldn't be, there. So again, it's about making sure the investments that my team is doing, they're safe, sound, and also making sure the financial aspect they're performing. So
nice. Yeah, absolutely. Systems, processes. We use Asana as our internal task management system. I know a lot of people use like Monday, but we're cheap, so we don't. And but Asana is just great for us.
Extreme value, Vince. Extreme value.
Yeah, that's it. Not too extreme value. Well, we're like, to your point, we reduce overhead. We try to run an efficient operation on the management team, because obviously we can pass that on to our investors. So
Exactly.
Yeah, it's important. And the system process, absolutely. It's one of those things, like a lot of people like using those buzzwords, but nobody likes actually building them. So it's you just have to have the discipline, and it's hard. It's boring. It's like, what are you going to do this day? Well, it's Saturday. I'm going to sit down and write out a process of how to do rent collections, and how to do 15-day or tenant delinquency notifications. And like, it's not fun, but it needs to get done. That's what separates the people that perform and outperform consistently and the ones that get lucky every once in a while and overall mediocre. So it is important to have that. I'm sure having, you and then Jack with his data science, I'm sure he has no problem flying through, Excel spreadsheets and things like that and just creating this stuff. So
exactly. He loves the numbers.
Stuff, yeah. All right. That's pretty much the end of my question. I guess the last thing, we'll get into on the fire round here, but to save your best book. But as far as education wise, what did you use to kind of transition? You said your father probably had a big impact, but I'm sure you've gotten some kind of continued education, either personally or through a course, to help you get to that next level. And I think a lot of people always had that question of like, how did you get there? And a lot of it's just like, there's no real mystery. You just got to do the work and then, nudge yourself a little around with the education that kind of help. So how did you do that? How did you make that transition?
Yeah, so a lot of it was bigger pockets, just reading a bunch of forums. I mean, I think Frank Rolfe was definitely a big one there. Just reaching out to him, and also I think he had a book that Jack got, and I also read it with just mobile home park investing, like the 101 of understanding what's your due diligence process look like, because that's completely different than your multifamily side of it. Some areas, obviously, from a numbers perspective are the same, but again, you have septic systems, wells, things like that. You just want to make sure from an operations standpoint, you understand what needs to be done from that perspective. The big thing there was just really reading and learning like through the internet. I don't have a formalized book or process that I would say, hey, read Rich Dad Poor Dad and you'll know everything about real estate. I definitely don't believe in that. And I've seen, and it's incredibly unfortunate, but folks that do read Rich Dad Poor Dad, they say, okay, like right after that, they're like, okay, I can flip a house. And they go into it all like full force and they lose a lot of money, which is really, really unfortunate. And for me, I think it's just being conservative, look at the numbers, take a step back, double check in with friends. I mean, I'm also part of a lot of Facebook groups that I bounce ideas off of because I definitely don't know everything under the sun, right? There's so much that goes into real estate investing. So just asking a lot of questions to experienced investors has gotten us to where we are right now.
Yep. What is it? Your network is your net worth is your network or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's absolutely true. There's people that are out there that are willing, that have experience, that are maybe, a couple years ahead of you, that are willing to jump on a Zoom call like this, or, just a phone call or lunch or something like that. Just give you a couple nuggets here and there. You do that, a couple times a month, 3-4 months later, you're going to have a, bachelor's degree in, education, which is going to shorten your learning curve, as well as, probably save you from a couple very costly missteps, especially with mobile home parks. When we were first looking at mobile home parks, it's like, there's like year cutoffs of like where you can't, if it's older than this year, it's like you might as well just take it to the dump. And, most people wouldn't have, known that unless they got into it. And then if you would have bought that place and you're like, wow, half of these, things are condemned, we have to get cleared out and, demoed. But it was just one conversation with somebody that has experience with it. He's like, watch for anything that's, flat roofs and older than, this date. And things we actually, it's funny you say that. We learned about that about 4 months ago. So, yeah.
After you sold, right?
So after we purchased an asset, we said, oh, wow, we can't move any of them, which luckily the goal, we didn't want to move them, but we end up learning about, okay, if there's other homes that we do want to purchase, down the road to infill for our property, you can move them. And for our state, I think it was like 1985 or something like that. If it's older than that, you can't move it.
Yeah, it's just crazy, all those little intricacies. But the point is that there's people out there that have done this, that have made the mistakes. Start networking and learn from them, and offer value. They've taken
the lumps.
Yeah, they've taken the lumps. Offer value to them in any way you can, whatever your strengths are, whatever you have to bring, and I'm sure they'll reciprocate with knowledge that they've earned, that tuition, right, that they've earned the hard way. So very good stuff. Steve?
Yeah, awesome. Well, we'll just go ahead and transition into the fire round every episode. We just have a couple of just short questions, and just whatever you think right off the top of your head. So you ready?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right, right on. So what is, Vince was leading up to that, what is the best book that you recommend?
Yeah, so it doesn't really have to do with real estate. It is A Ride of a Lifetime by Robert Iger. It's basically an he's the ex Disney CEO, and it kind of shares his entire story of how he became the CEO of Disney. And one of the core takeaways there is always learn from whatever role you're in, whether you're still in your W-2 job and you're just starting out, continue to learn. I mean, whether you're just starting out in real estate, continue to learn from those real estate investors that may have done 100 flips, or if you're trying to do flipping, and if you're trying to be multifamily, talk to those investors that have just a number of units and have done this consistently. The other core takeaway from there was just be flexible and really be able to try envision your success, right? Like, where do you want to see yourself? Where do you want to go with that? And for me, because I have that, hey, I look at all these shiny balls, and I'm like, oh, hey, I want to go do this or invest in this. It kind of helps me narrow in of, okay, look, I know I'm really good at this. Let me stay in this lane and focus, and then put 100% of my attention into this. But the other side of it is, like, as an entrepreneur, right? Like, you have to worry about taxes. You have to worry about operations. You have to worry about your staff. You have to worry about all these different things, right? And you have to do a lot of mind shifts. And so, like, I could be on a call with an investor to, like, at 9 a.m. and then all of a sudden I have a water leak going on inside one of my mobile home parks. So taking that, investor mindset and that side of it, and putting your operations hat and really being able to navigate that and that's the reason why I really like this book. I mean, it kind of helps, as a CEO of Disney, he has the parks, he has the shows and all these different things that happen at Disney, right?
He has Marvel.
Marvel, exactly. Yeah. Being able to navigate that. Exactly. So being able to navigate that, and that's, those are my core takeaways from that book.
Yeah. So we have a couple of terms, reminds me, some things in the military. It's, we have, at least in the Air Force where I'm at, is, grow where you're planted is always, the sage words of the older E9s, that get people to kind of understand and cope with, because in the military, we don't get to choose, right? You go where you're told, right? You might be in, middle of nowhere, desert, Cannon Air Force Base or Minot, North Dakota, or something like that. These places that most people don't want to be at. And that's always a saying that comes up, is just grow where you're planted. Like, this might be the situation you're going to be put in, but there is going to be opportunity for you to grow, and just find it there, find where you can, learn, grow, learn something new. Don't just go there, kicking and, like, oh, I'm going to, have to live the next 4 years here. Just be ready to adapt, and always look for the opportunity to grow. So that one is really important, especially as an entrepreneur. I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I do operations for our company. So it is, every day is, just a roller coaster. Like, I can get a call, like you said, 8 a.m. from one property manager in Texas saying, holy, crap, we went from a loss to lease to a gain to lease, we're at 100% filled, and everything's going to, literally the same day, it'd be like, yeah, so 3 dams broke in Midland, and the town's gone, right? And it's like, what? Like, it's crazy. And just being able to control your emotions. This is not, definitely have that intestinal fortitude of just being able to control your emotions, and just, this is the situation. Keep a clear head and just keep rolling with the punches, keep adapting, keep solving problems. Because if you're somebody that gets emotional and just worrisome and just train wreck every time something bad happens, you get the one call, it's February in Michigan right now. You're going to get the call that says, hey, we had a slip and fall. If that doesn't turn your stomach it to knots. I guess you just got like,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I've had that call on like a Saturday morning, slip and fall, they're on the way to the hospital. Like, the initial fear that just goes through your head, and then you just kind of gather your thoughts and be like, okay, this is what it is. This is how we're going to solve this. This is, remain flexible and just keep adapting, keep moving forward. Because otherwise you're going to get like you're going to eat up in this industry.
Yeah, most definitely.
That's a good recommendation on the book. It sounds good. We'll have to check that one out. Next question. What's your superpower?
What is my superpower? So that's a hard one. I wouldn't say I have a superpower, but I have a team that is amazing, right? So I have folks on my side. I have my wife. I mean, she's awesome. She sees the calls that I'm on at 10, 11 p.m. and those are usually never good. So having folks on my side. I mean, I have my partners, my employees, my just overall team. They're incredibly supportive, and because of that, I know I'm going to succeed, right? No matter what it is, whether it be this deal, the next deal, 10 years from now, I know there's not going to be a way we're going to fail. And just having that has been there. They are my superpower, right? I mean, that's really the best way to put it.
I love that. Actually, I love a couple of things that you said there. It's like, if we're on the team, we all know that it's incredibly valuable. But just it's more than that, right? Because it's more than just the mechanics. It's like the support system, right? Like your wife, your spouse is part of the team. Like you need that support system because, just like how we were just talking about, it's incredibly stressful. It can be a stressful business. There's just a lot of moving parts. So yeah, they're absolutely vital. But I love that. I love
emotions play a huge role in it, right? I mean, especially when you're in operations, or if you're like you see a deal and it's like right there, you're about to get that deal, and it just doesn't work out, right? I mean, you're gonna be upset, and reeling it in, not throwing it, not punching a hole in the wall and things like that. It's not the end of the world, right? At the end of the day, most things are not the end of the world, right? So making sure and putting things in perspective, right? We're so blessed to be in a spot where we are, right? Having these properties, having the cash flow, I'm not worried about the next meal I eat, right? And I'm sure a lot of folks are. So that's, being able to give back, being able to just reel things in, put things in perspective has been really important for us.
Yeah. I love the other thing you said there too, like actually having that certainty of like, no, I know that I'm going to succeed. Like that's actually pretty huge. I don't know if enough people realize. It's like, okay, before you're ever going to see it, you gotta believe it. So
yeah, definitely.
So, all right, next question. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey to real estate investing?
I would say the probably the biggest lesson, and I have probably learned this many times over and over again, and it's finally starting to stick, is I'm only one person and I cannot do it all. I cannot be the person who's taking tenant phone calls. I cannot be the person who's managing a W-2 job and out there trying to fix a roof. And I'm one person, and understanding that side of it has been a lesson to be learned, right? Me going out there and trying to fix a roof takes away time from me trying to find my next deal or me talking to my investors, right? So that's been the biggest learning lesson for me, is saying, okay, look, there's things that matter a lot, and make sure you hire the right people to do the things that you don't have to do, right? So that's hiring the contractors, hiring property managers, whatever it is. Finally, that's starting to stick in my head of, okay, like if you have the right folks or right education or whatever it is, you're going to be able to do fine. And for in the past, that wasn't the case, right? When we were flipping houses, especially, I was the one trying to put up the drywall and paint and do like all this other stuff. And at the end of the day, right, like that's time that's taking away from you trying to find that next deal. So just
we call those we have a whole, in our sauna, we have a whole like a parking lot for that. It's like, if you're just doing a task and you just like stop halfway through and you're like, why am I doing this? And then you're just like, okay, at that moment, stop, put it in the parking lot in a sauna. So then at our next quarterly meeting, we can talk about, okay, how are we going to hire this out? Are we going to get a VA? Or are we going to, outsource this or whatever? But just constantly thinking about, in the back of your head that, is this the highest and best use of my time? And if it's not, figure out a way to delegate it ASAP so you can focus on those things. Like deal acquisition is, obviously more important. So.
Yeah. All right. Next question. For the busy working professional who's working towards financial freedom, what advice do you have?
Yeah. So I think a lot of what we've talked about has been around team and flexibility and learning, right? So someone who's in that W-2 income, don't be let down. There's going to be folks that are saying they're going to tell you, no, like that's impossible. You can't do this. And believe me, I've been in situations where folks have said, yeah, right. Okay. That's impossible. You can't manage a $30 million portfolio and have a W-2 income. And I'm like, guess what? I'm doing it. I'm living that life. So there's going to be a lot of naysayers, and do not listen to them. I mean, I love constructive feedback. I've made so many mistakes, and people telling me, hey, this is a better way to do it. That's awesome. I love that. And just being able to learn from that is huge. But then, folks that are just negative and just don't, take that away, get out of that. It's a mind shift. And I would say, continue to focus in on earning and not just save, right? You can save pennies and save the $6 or whatever it costs to not get your Starbucks coffee or whatever it is, but focus in on how you can earn more money. How can I buy a Starbucks, right? Like figure that out, right? I think there's so many different ways to just look at passive incomes, join a syndication, invest in, so, even if you don't want to invest or like you don't have a deal in front of you, work with someone that may. So there's definitely a lot of different opportunities out there. I think just reviewing, reading, and learning a lot, it will go a long way.
I freaking love that, man. I love the, you got people that are just trying to save the money on going to Starbucks every morning. I love that. Hey, how can I get my coffee for free? Well, I gotta go freaking buy the Starbucks. I love that, man. I love that. All right. Well, awesome. Well, you know what, how can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you? They want to learn a little bit more and just reach to you direct. What's kind of the best avenues for that?
Sure. Yeah. So reach out to us on our website, jaysinvestments.com, JAYINVESTMENTS.com. So definitely reach out to us on there. You can contact us. It goes directly to our emails. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Apurva Shah, APURVA Shah, SHAH. I mean, I'm on there. I'm pretty active. So those are definitely two great ways to touch base. I mean, would love to connect and see how it can add some value. Awesome.
Well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. We really appreciate you coming on and kind of sharing some gems and some nuggets in your experience with us. I mean, some of the stuff I've never heard of, and I think that's awesome. That's what I love about real estate too, right? It's like you get to meet, awesome people who are doing great things, and there's a million different facets to real estate too. So love that.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Vincent and Steve. Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate you coming on with us. Have a great one.
You as well.
What an awesome episode with Apurva, having him on the show, sharing us with his different experiences regarding real estate as a whole. Really some unique concepts. I mean, his focus is going to be multifamily and mobile home parks, but cool experience in him sharing their conversion of office space into units. So that's definitely, this is the great thing about real estate. You got to love real estate, right? A bunch of different tools in the tool belt, and you just, put to work what you need when you need it. But yeah, great having him on the show. He shared lots of wisdom with us. So make sure that you're hopping back on, taking a listen to the episode. And of course, if you find value in any of our recordings, any of our podcasts, and we love recording them, we definitely love being able to share knowledge with you guys. But please make sure you subscribe into the show, especially if you're finding value. We would love if you give us a rating and a review on, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you may be listening to the show. If you know anybody, of course, who would resonate with the show and kind of the different things that we're talking about, please make sure that you're sharing it with them. Connect with like-minded investors. Of course, join our Facebook group. Find us on Facebook, Honolulu Multifamily and More. It's Honolulu. It says Honolulu, but we've got people literally all over the globe. So definitely making sure that you're getting plugged into the community as that one grows every day. And if you're interested in connecting with us directly, go to tricityequity.com to learn more about what we've got going on, the latest deals, et cetera. So pleasure coming on. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Aloha.